This video is meant to be a quick start in Gravit Designer for those who didn't do all my tutorials and would like to get started with it quickly. You can create a new design on this page by choosing New Design. I usually put in 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels for dimensions and click Create. The first thing I'd like to show you is the Shape tool. Up in the menu bar you'll find the Shape tool. It will look like a square or a circle, and if you click it or click the triangle right next to it, you will see the drop down menu. Choose a rectangle, and let's click and drag on the canvas to create a rectangle. Then you can by hovering over any of these points, you can see arrows come up. If you click and drag, you can change the size at any of these points. You can also rotate with this handle on the top. Command Z to undo anything that you just did. It can go back several steps. On the right, there's a menu called Fills. If you don't see it open, click the plus sign. If you see this gray circle, click on that and choose a color. You can select an object by clicking on it. When you see the blue frame around it, you know that it's selected. You have to click on it when the pointer tool is selected. You can also select an object by clicking and dragging this blue box and touching it. You can select multiple objects in that way. A border in the Borders menu will make a line around the outside edge of your shape. If you don't see the menu open, go and click the plus sign, and then click the border color circle to choose a color. In this field, you can change the width of the border. Let's put in 10 instead of a 1 and hit return. Now we have a 10 pixel red border. Let's add a second shape. By clicking on the Shape tool drop-down menu, we'll choose Ellipse, and we'll make an ellipse by clicking and dragging right on top of our rectangle. Now I want you to look on the left side panel where it says Layers. This is your Layers panel. The new shape will be automatically created on a new layer, and whatever shape you want to select, you can also select in the Layers panel by clicking on it there. So now the rectangle is selected, now the ellipse is selected because I clicked on that layer in the Layers panel. You can also click and drag on a layer to move it behind or in front of another layer. So the layer at the bottom will be on the bottom of your picture. The layer at the top will be on the top of your picture. Let's move the rectangle back to the bottom by dragging it. So right now only the rectangle is selected. We can hold down Shift and select the ellipse too by clicking on it in the Layers panel. Now both are selected. If I click off on the canvas, now nothing is selected. There are many ways to select things, and those are some of them. If you have the pointer tool selected up in the top menu bar, then you can drag a rectangle. If it touches both shapes, both will be selected. You can click on a shape and then hold Shift and click on the other shape, and now both are selected. If you have two shapes selected, you can use the Compound Shape tool, which is this right here. Hover over it and it will say Create Compound Shape. So if you click the drop-down menu there, you see choices of union, subtract, intersect, and difference. If you have two shapes selected, you can use the Compound Shape tool. You have to have two shapes or more selected to use this tool. So I'll just show you what one of them does, and you can play with the rest and see what they do. But union will make one shape out of the two shapes by joining them together. Okay? Let's undo that. Suppose you want these two shapes to stay together, but you don't want them to become one compound shape. You also have the option of grouping them. You have to have them both selected, and you can group items. And if you group things together, when you resize them, say you wanted to make them both smaller, they'll get smaller together. So they'll be two separate shapes, but they'll be grouped together until you ungroup them, and you can ungroup them with the Ungroup Items button. Okay, so that pretty much covers shapes. Now I want to tell you about making paths. Paths are made with the pen tool, usually. You can click and drag and get handles to make curves. Click and drag, and you can make any kind of shape that you want with a pen tool. And you can close the shape by going back to the box that you made first with your first click and clicking on it to close the shape. Now each of these individual points can be moved with the Subselect tool, which is right under your pointer tool. If you have the Subselect tool chosen, which is Subselect is a white arrow, then you can choose single points to move by themselves. Now, if you wanted to fill this shape, you could fill it with a color. You could give it a border, just like a shape made with the shape tool. One difference is between the shapes made with the shape tool and the shapes made with the pen tool, with paths, are that the shapes made with the shape tool are not really paths until you make them paths. I cannot take my Subselect tool and work with move a single point of this shape unless I convert it to a path first. So sometimes you might want to convert to path by selecting your shape that was made with the shape tool and clicking this button that looks like an S with two boxes on the ends to convert it to a path. Now I can choose one point and distort the shape. Okay. The one thing that you will definitely want to remember to do is save your work regularly so that you don't lose it. The way to do that is there's a button here you can use to save by clicking it, or you can go to File, Save, and then you'll see recent files that you've been working on, and down at the bottom where it says Untitled and it's highlighted with blue, that's where you should write your name for your file. I'll just call this one Test, and then click Save. And that saves it. Okay, that should be enough to get you started. I'll see you next time.